Hello, welcome to Curry Girl Tech Talk. I am Krystal Curry. Today is our special holiday podcast. Happy holidays! This festive time of year is actually my favorite. People seem to be kinder to one another. It's common to hear expressions of holiday greetings and well wishes. There is such a magic of the holidays. And as many as there are of unique families, there are just as many different ways that people celebrate this time of year. For my friends and listeners abroad, the one thing I can say is that this is the one time of year where we in the United States actually do have holiday hours, and offices, in fact, do close, and many take their holiday or vacation time away to relax and rejuvenate. As the year winds down, many are busy quickly completing their Q4 goals, strategizing for 2025, closing out recs, and finalizing their last-minute hirings. All this can be a bit stressful. And added to this stress is the anticipation of family gatherings for some of us. Family, that word, brings so many thoughts to mind in the beautiful ways that we embrace it. Friends, relatives, colleagues, dating relationships, all qualify. And while families are blessings, we know holidays can bring stress. Even the pressure of finding the perfect gift can cause anxiety, not to mention perhaps overstretching the budget. And the hustle and bustle of holiday parties. While many of us look forward to these activities surrounding the holiday, we try to enjoy the moment and bask in the sense of magic and wonder. But I believe we can all use a few strategies for eliminating stress and embracing the holiday spirit. So today's podcast has one rule: no Scrooges and no bah humbug. So sit back, relax, and woosah with me as Lisa gives us strategies for eliminating stress, taking a different perspective for the holidays, and preparing for 2025. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Miss Lisa Smith to the podcast.
Hey,
Hi,
Krystal.
Lisa.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being here. It's such a pleasure to have you. All right, so our podcast is primarily focused on technology, and we're in the midst of a Web3 series. But a lot of that is stressful to a lot of people because there's a huge transformation going on in the technology industry right now, and that includes artificial intelligence, how it's just changing things for all of us. And then Web3, the introduction of that, and it can be stressful for those even in tech industry. We're excited to hear what tips that you can give us to get through these stressful times.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And I really appreciate you bringing this conversation to your industry. I wish more would do it, incorporate more personal development talk into their work and industry talk. So thank you for that. You know, stress is a silent killer. And so that's the first thing I want listeners to understand is that although it's extremely common and extremely ubiquitous, I don't want us to take it for granted and assume because stress is part of life that we can be passive about it. You know, there are two major forms of stress, which is acute and chronic. And chronic is what kills. Acute is normal. We can expect things to happen in life. We can expect things to be overwhelming. We can expect, for example, if you're working on a project, for it to kind of up in your life for a bit until that project is complete, right? And so acute stress is perfectly normal. So what I'm not suggesting is that we're going to all live these perfectly stress-free lives. However, there is a distinction between types of stress that we all want to take into consideration. Acute is actually quite healthy. Acute stress is the number one thing about acute stress is that it's typically time-bound, meaning there is a definitive end date. So if you're working on a big project or something goes awry in your day, you know, a big appliance goes down at home or something goes crazy with your car or something with your family, like acute stress is going to happen, right? But the chronic stress, the things that are not time bound, that are causing you overwhelm, that's causing your nervous system to be overactive, causing you to lose sleep at night or to your eating and your sleeping habits are have become erratic because you literally have, right, these incessant, intrusive thoughts about this particular circumstance, and you don't have an exit strategy. And so what happens is for most people, especially, with me being a coach nearly a decade now, for most of my clients, I'm a health coach, a business coach, and I also do work in the personal development space. It's their career. So people are at jobs that they don't love, that aren't fulfilling or meaningful. They're in relationships that are no longer mutually beneficial. They have health challenges that is causing that's taxing their body and their minds. And if they don't have an exit strategy, so they're in this situation, they don't know when it's going to end. They don't have a strategy for how to get out of it. They also don't have an enter strategy on how to get into the circumstance they prefer to be in. This results in chronic stress. And so again, this could look like, exacerbated health challenges or phantom health challenges, like people are getting tests done and they can't find a root cause for the thing that it's not right with them. This can look like erratic sleeping patterns. Definitely a lot of emotional eating can take place, or just losing appetite and not eating at all. And we begin to lack pleasure or are unable to derive pleasure out of the things that used to be pleasurable to us before. So a lot of things can shift and change with us personally on a cellular level and in our immediate circle as a result of chronic stress. And that is the stress that underlies over 90% of chronic disease. So I want people to understand that stress does kill, and I don't want us to take it for granted or think just because we're stressed and everyone around us is overwhelmed that it's just normal.
And I know like the holidays can even exacerbate those feelings too. On top of the stress in your career, the holidays can, the anticipation of those relationships, whether it be family or friends or even shopping for people and all that, can add additional stress. What kind of things can we do, Lisa? Because I mean, to be honest with you, I am one of those people that I tend to eat more when I'm stressed. I will pick up little things and I'm munching mindlessly because I have that overwhelming stress. But what kind of things can we do to try to eliminate that stress or get that clutter out of our minds?
Yeah. So the first is recognize your patterns when you do feel certain feelings, right? So when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel stressed out, what do you typically do? For you, Krystal, you said I'll eat. And I'm imagining it's not kale and carrots, right? No. With that being said, it probably, would you self-identify as an emotional eater?
I would.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Okay. So one of the first tools that will really help us to navigate chronic stress better is emotional intelligence. So when we turn to a substance like food or alcohol or smoking something, or if we turn to a behavior like gaming or things that can take our mind off of the things that's overwhelming us, that escapism or that avoidance can turn toxic over time, right?
Right.
Because we're not dealing with the bigger issue. And part of the reason we're not dealing with the bigger issue is often due to a lack of emotional intelligence, because our ability to regulate our emotions says that we can feel the overwhelm, we can feel the stress, we can feel the anger, the disappointment, the sadness, whatever it is, without making self-destructive decisions. And so if you have a personal health goal that you're supposed to be adhering to in this season, but then soon, the moment you feel overwhelmed or stressed out, you run to eat something that's not in line with your goals. That is a classic case of a lack of emotional regulation, right? Because this doesn't align with what I said I was going to do in this season. So first things first is, what has my lack of emotional intelligence, my lack of emotional regulation, what has that caused me to do? Like, it's caused me to completely neglect my personal goals. Maybe some other people they go to might be impulse shopping, but they're supposed to be in a season of being financially responsible, right? So I need us to take a hard look at how our own behavior is becoming self-destructive because we're not managing our emotions around the circumstance. Because the truth of the matter is, it's not the circumstance that's the real problem. It's the absence of an exit strategy, and it's our inability to regulate our emotions properly. And so the first thing we need is emotional intelligence. The second thing we need is an exit strategy. So what we've been taught, unfortunately, when it comes to stress is management techniques. So we've been taught to manage stress. And so we are looking at things like time off or self-care days or breathing techniques or mindfulness practices like meditation and yoga. And all of that is extremely healthy, extremely healthy. That doesn't solve the problem of going back into the job that we hate come Monday morning, though. It doesn't solve the problem of waking up to the next to the person that we've grown to hate. It doesn't solve the problem of this relationship you have in your life with a parent, with a sibling, with a friend that has a major issue that you're not addressing. It doesn't solve the problem. Like yoga doesn't solve your financial problems. And so what we're doing is managing something that we should be working to eliminate. And elimination of a problem requires an exit strategy and an enter strategy. So if your health has gotten out of control, you're overweight, you're diagnosed with something, you're just not feeling good, you're chronically tired all the time, you have to create an exit strategy and you have to implement the strategy. And you also need an enter strategy into where you want to go instead. So how do I exit from obesity and enter into optimal health? Those are two separate strategies. How do I exit from debt and enter into financial freedom? How do I exit from my 9-to-5 and enter into being a full-time entrepreneur if that's what you desire? So we need emotional intelligence because it's the lack of emotional regulation that typically has prolonged our undesirable circumstances. The circumstance is not that bad, actually, but it's because we haven't sat down and implemented or created a strategy or implemented the strategy. That's really the overwhelming part, is that if you were working on it every day, imagine, because I'm not saying you're not going to get out of thousands upon thousands of dollars in debt in 6 months, probably not. But imagine if you had a strategy that you were executing and you felt you were actively doing something about it, you would instantly feel better. So I'm not saying you should stress, right? Yeah.
I agree with that, because what I was thinking is even in business, like when you're creating, if you have a business plan that you're working on, just the process of working through that plan instantly relieves some anxiety about what could come. Because one of the things we do in several industries, even technology industry, is we do like risk mitigation strategies. We think of, because somebody's always inevitably, especially in technology meetings, well, what if this happens? Or what if, and we go through these different what if scenarios. But one of the things we try to do is create a log of risk mitigation strategies to kind of help us along the journey. If unforeseen circumstances come into play, what kind of things can we do to mitigate things that we know now? And you're right, it does relieve a certain amount of stress and makes you feel better about being able to execute on those things because you have a plan at that point. And so when you translate that to having that emotional intelligence to recognize, okay, for myself, I'm speaking of like, all right, I recognize that I'm feeling stressed and I'm wanting to get some chocolate now. And, instead of recognizing that and having the emotional intelligence to identify it and then having a strategy in place to kind of help you with your exit strategy, right, is what we need. Can you give us some examples to kind of what that exit strategy might look like? For some people, I'm using myself as an example for the eating. Is that kind of like a typical exit strategy? Okay, for one, I'm not going to put this candy in the house. If I'm planning to start this healthy journey, I know that I should not have this in the house anyway.
No. So we're not trying to solve for your emotional eating. We're solving for the reason you're emotionally eating. So the exit strategy is not, it's not, sure, if you don't trust yourself with stuff in the house, don't keep it in the house, but that's not the bigger issue. The bigger issue is what made you feel overwhelmed and stressed out in the first place? And can we solve for that? Mm-hmm. And usually it's a belief that's underlying the causation of the stress, right? And so, for example, a lot of people, their work is their most overwhelming, stressful thing, especially if they're unhappy with their work. They're unfulfilled. They don't feel purposeful. Maybe they're bored with the role, whatever it is. And so an exit strategy from a circumstance where you're dissatisfied with your work is going to look like, okay, number one, well, what do I want to do instead? What do I prefer to do instead? right? And number two, if I think the solution is quitting this job versus maybe transitioning to a different role in the company, then I need to set an exit date. Like, what's the last day that I'm going to work here? And what am I going to do instead? And if what am I going to do instead? What does that require for me to get into? Is it starting a business? Is it applying for a job somewhere totally different? Is it doing nothing, and now I'm just in a season where I don't want to work? But you have to make decisions. So exit strategy requires decision making. The reason people are unhappy with their job, for example, is not because there's no way out, is they're refusing to make a decision. So the underlying belief as to why you're not making a decision becomes the problem. So I hate working here. I need to make a decision. Am I going to quit? Am I going to ask for my role to be reconfigured so that I can enjoy my work again? Am I going to transfer within the company? Am I going to start my own business? Because all of those are probably scary for somebody who's been in their role a really long time and feel like they're really dependent on this job for whatever, they're refusing to make a decision. And so they just stay in an unhappy, undesirable circumstance. So exit strategy is all about listing all the things that need to take place for you to get out of this situation, and then attaching or identifying the limiting belief that's preventing you from taking the step. Step one, write a letter of resignation. Why haven't I written the letter of resignation? Because I'm so scared. It feels so final. Is my husband going to approve of this? Or we won't be able to pay our bills and we're going to be homeless. So you have a fear of homelessness. You have a fear of whatever. And so you're refusing to take the step. The job ain't the problem. It's your belief, right? So exit strategy is all about beliefs and decision making.
So one of the things I was looking at when I was getting prepared for this is your challenge. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're doing in January for Lisa Smith's plant-based food challenge, and what do you have going on for the new year? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I specialize in plant-based nutrition and taking a plant-based approach to optimizing our brain and our neurological functioning, and so that we can regulate our bodies and our minds. And twice a year, we do a 30-day vegan, salt, oil, and sugar-free challenge. So the next one is coming up on January 1st, 2025 is when we're kicking off. We're approaching about 1,200 people registered so far. And myself and my team will be escorting the challengers through a plant-based experience that's going to be absent of all meat, eggs, dairy, seafood, in addition to salt, oil, and sugar. And so the overwhelming majority of our challengers typically have some type of chronic lifestyle disease. So chronic meaning 3 months or longer. Lifestyle disease meaning things that were preventable and avoidable, but their lifestyle habits have caused them to escalate and exacerbate. So we're looking at things like being overweight. We're looking at things like hypertension and high cholesterol, autoimmune conditions, reproductive health challenges, skin issues, kidney failure, heart disease, a ton of those type of conditions, that type 2 diabetes that we use a plant-based diet to combat. And then we get into the health and the brain, things like brain fog. You have mild cognitive impairment. We have things like depression and anxiety and different mood disorders. Food is medicine. And so my mission is to show people that, not just teach it to them, but show them, let them sample the product. So the challenge is free, and people do have the option to upgrade to VIP, but the challenge is free. We do it twice a year, and I'll be teaching live with our challengers twice a week on Wednesday evenings and Saturday mornings for the entire month of January. So anyone who's ready to come get this health, I would encourage you to get registered for the Plant Protocol 30-day vegan, salt, oil, and sugar-free challenge.
That is awesome. My goodness, I am signing up for that myself because I'm ready to introduce some new habits. Lisa, I have to say, like, when I'm thinking about 2025 and getting ready for this challenge, I'm like, I need to eat all the stuff I want to eat now, but I need to plan my exit strategy already in advance and getting myself prepared to mentally, because I don't even need to do that, because that's not something that I need that's healthy, but making a different choice and making a decision to do something that's going to better my life. And it doesn't, and making that decision, if it's not going to help me get ready for, 2025, then that's not a decision that I need to make to further exacerbate a situation that I know is already causing me stress, because it's stressful what I'm going to be like in in the start of 2025 when everybody else is in the mode of they're on it. They're ready for the vegan challenge, and I'm still struggling with sugar.
I would definitely discourage everyone listening from flooding their body with poison in preparation for the challenge. That is not the best approach to being successful. We crave what we consume. So the more you consume it, the more you're going to crave it, the harder it is. It's going to be to overcome your body's dependency on it. And it's just an unhealthy way to look at food, thinking that this is the last time I'm going to have it. I have to have it. I got to binge one last time. It's like, if your body and mind is already compromised, if you're already overweight, if you're already diagnosed with something, if you're already, maybe you don't have a diagnosis, but you just don't feel good on a regular basis, right? I want us to hear how toxic it sounds to say, let me put more of what got me here into my body before I decide to go all in and do something about it. You're already compromised. You're literally already compromised, right? This is the reason you're doing the challenge, right? You already aren't optimal. And so to put yourself in a position where you're going to have to work 10 times harder to overcome and handle your relationship with food, it's just an unhealthy approach to health, right? And so I wish more people would understand that what you're thinking about doing is what got you to where you are right now. And so the sooner you can start, the better. The more you can understand that food isn't going anywhere. And so don't think this is my last ditch effort to eat a potato chip. Like, just relax. Let's just go into a season of health. Let's just wrap our mind around, you know what? I'm going to stop letting this food have more power over me than I have over it. And I'm going to once and for all take my power back. And I'm going to do everything I can to be the best version of myself, because I've been given an assignment that I need to show up for. And I've been late in turning in my assignment. I haven't been healthy enough to execute on the dream. I haven't been healthy enough to execute on the assignment, and shame on me. And I'm not going to delay my obedience any longer because I don't have self-control.
Any thoughts on getting us through the holidays? Because I know when we get to those family gatherings and all that good food is there, and not just even the food, but even the familial type of relationships and getting through this period. Sometimes I know for myself, I can get overwhelmed, the pressure of being around family or even friends and those holiday parties and snoozing up and finishing those goals, with networking, can bring us stress. But any final thoughts for the holiday season and any special things?
I'm happy to make an invitation to the audience, which is, to survive all the temptation, give your health an assignment. So make your health responsible for something more than just taking care of you. So my health is responsible for everyone that's listening. I have to be sharp mentally. I have to be presentable physically. I have to be confident in my body so that I can take these stages, get on these mics. But more importantly, I have to be ready for all the questions I'm going to be asked when I speak, all the teaching and coaching that I do, all the curriculums that I create, all the podcast episodes that I create. My brain needs to be sharp so that my content resonates with the people who I feel called to serve. And so get crystal clear on what your assignment is and give your health that assignment. If you think you're only doing it for yourself, unfortunately, you have probably proved multiple times over that you're willing to let yourself down. However, if you realize who you're really doing it for and what you need to be optimal for, is it that book you need to write, that nonprofit you need to start, that project you need to start, that podcast you need to start? What do you need to be optimal for above and beyond your own personal longevity? And deal with the fact that you're going to have to reconcile letting all of us down if you continue to make poor decisions in your health, if you continue to make poor decisions in your relationship, if you continue to make poor decisions in your life. We all have unique gifts that are meant to be re-gifted. And so if you are not re-gifting your gifts to the rest of us because of your personal health challenges, your personal displeasure with your career or your life, and you're not doing anything about it, that is disobedience, and you don't want to go into 2025 being disobedient.
Such an amazing person, Lisa.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. This was awesome, because you're right. We're not just letting ourselves down, we're letting other people down. And part of that is if we've been gifted with a purpose and we feel strongly about what that purpose is, being able to do that in the most excellent way that we are capable of doing requires us to take inventory of what those gifts are and being able to present them in the best way. And part of that is taking care of ourselves first, eliminating that stress, having that exit strategy, and walking into whatever we have with the most exuberance and sharing those gifts as best as we can. And I think that's an awesome way to describe that. You're amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure, Krystal. Thank you for having me.
I want to thank Lisa for joining the podcast today. I am already preparing myself for healthier eating and implementing other stress-busting techniques that she has graciously provided. I certainly believe and hope that these insights are helpful to you as well. Best wishes to you for a wonderful holiday as you embrace the holiday and celebrate in whatever special ways that are significant to you and the folks that you call family and friends. I'd like to say happy holidays from Krystal Curry. Take care. Hey, happy holidays. As we near the close of 2024, I know that you are planning and setting goals for the new year. I want to personally invite you to attend my leadership webinar in January 2025. This course is specifically designed for you with corporate leadership principles with a lens on technology shifts, condensed and sprinkled with a human-centered approach from my own experiences. Registration opens December 16th. For large groups, email info@currygirltechtalk.com for special rates. I can't wait to see you on the other side.